Hey friends, it's Rachel.
And Shira. Welcome to our Zoom Out podcast.
We're two close friends who love having honest, vulnerable conversations about life, healing, and all the messy, beautiful parts of being human.
We definitely don't have all the answers, but we have a deep desire to see life from a wider lens.
We're here to ask questions, share our stories along the way, be real with each other and with you.
So if you've ever felt like there's a bigger picture you're not always seeing, you're not alone.
Let's zoom out
Together.
Hi friends.
Welcome back, guys.
So exciting. Episode 8. This is called the one where we break the cycle. And last week we were talking a lot about childhood trauma, different things in Shira and I's childhood and just, the idea of childhood trauma, what it is. So we found it very appropriate for this next episode to talk about the one where we break the cycle and essentially once we understand our childhood trauma, now what do we do with it?
Right.
How do we grow from it? What can we gain from it? Because we know that everything in our lives is happening for our greatest good, or that's the hope, that's the goal. And with that mindset, let's pretend we all view life like that for a second. With that mindset, how could we all, each individually, view our childhood trauma in a way where it's benefiting us?
Yes. And we'll do that by sort of giving examples because I think that really helps. Our experiences will help people understand how we've gone about it and how they can go about it. But for me, last week I mentioned about that being the oldest was sort of my childhood trauma and how that affected me and left me with two things. I guess seeking more attention, needing more validation because you can kind of get lost in responsibility and lose yourself, and also needing my own space and to be more independent. Because again, you can lose yourself with a lot of kids and
especially when you're the oldest and you have to take care of everyone.
Exactly. So a way that I try to sort of break that cycle of those feelings and I guess projecting those feelings onto other people is first of all to recognize the trauma. The Lubavitcher
you can't
Rebbe,
fix it if you don't know what it is.
Yeah, the Lubavitcher Rebbe says the first step to cure an illness is to actually know what that illness is. So, obviously acknowledging that, and I think through talking with Rachel and starting this podcast, that actually made me think about this because I never really thought about why do I act in this way? What is triggering it from my childhood? So obviously recognizing that, and I try to be more mindful on how I act to other people because I don't want to do to other people what I felt hurt me. So I try to be more perceptive of other people's emotions and just more aware of people, give them the attention that they need, and also be more aware of myself and what I need and not to always put other people before myself or other things before myself. And of course I've mentioned the toxic friendship I was in quite a few times, but it was
a powerful lesson,
a huge situation that taught me so many lessons, and I want to share those lessons with you guys because if I can help someone out of a situation like that or not even get into a situation like that, then I've done my job. But so I realized after thinking about childhood trauma that the reason I even got into that relationship in the first place, obviously I cared about the person, but also I became a sort of enabler because I was craving attention and to feel seen. And I mentioned that before, that I grew up always not feeling so fulfilled, and I felt very fulfilled in that friendship. I was like, wow, this person sees me and I feel so loved and special. And then it gets to a point where the other side of me, who wants my space and wants my individuality, was fighting with that because it became too much. So there was two childhood traumas fighting at the same time. And then I was enabling it because I would feel lonely, right? And then I would get that unloneliness from that person. But then when I got it too much, I would want to be alone again, and then it was just a cycle and cycle. So in a way, the second part of my childhood trauma kind of helped me when I realized I need my space, I need my individuality, and I don't want to fall into this. That's what helped me eventually get out of that cycle of staying in it, and I was able to protect myself. And now looking back and coming out of that, me now, I do have that part of me that's maybe a little bit too independent and individualistic, if that's a word.
Yeah.
So I definitely need to work on the other side, being more vulnerable. So basically, my point with sharing all this is that it's really a fine line. Childhood trauma and the way you heal it is such a fine line, and you have to make sure that there's a balance and just not to become a victim and drown in it. And the way you do that is by recognizing what it is and trying to transform it into something positive. And always remember, I wrote it down and I want to say it because I wrote it down so nicely. But you want to, oh, here. So it shows us how there's a cycle and we could fall into it and allow our trauma to get the best of us, but we can also use it and sort of wield it as a weapon to help us. So that's transforming our childhood trauma into good. And the last thing I want to say before I pass this off to Rachel, that I watched the movie Good Will Hunting, which stars Matt Damon, one of my favorite movies of all time. And in one of the scenes, Robin Williams, who plays like the teacher who has an effect on Will, he's telling him like it's not. He keeps repeating, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault," because he went through abuse, and like Matt Damon starts like crying and he says, "I know it's not my fault," but I think forgiving yourself, obviously forgiving the other person or forgiving any whatever the situation was that caused the childhood trauma in the first place, but it really also is forgiving yourself. So him hearing like it's not your fault, and he kept saying I know, but like to feel that it's not your fault is the most important thing. And I really feel like for me, when I realize that there's nothing wrong with me, obviously you take responsibility for the part that you may have played in it, but to not let it like affect you and hold you and victimize you, is the most important thing. So 3 steps to recap: know what the childhood trauma is, transform it into something positive, and let go by forgiving yourself and the situation.
I love that. I think a couple thoughts that come in when you talk is like, one, I do think forgiveness, it's never about the other person. True forgiveness is really about, letting go of your own pain inside, because again, you're with you forever. And it will always be you versus you. It's like we're trying to be more healed versions of ourselves. And so I've had, many different conversations with people and their childhood trauma, talking about this episode, different things. And a lot of them will say, but I don't know if I can forgive this other person. I don't know if I can forgive my parents who did this. And obviously, like, we just want to make another disclaimer. I know we talked about this in last week's episode. Obviously, everyone's childhood trauma is different, and there are different forms of abuse in many ways, and this is in no way, shape, or form saying, oh, someone abused you verbally, sexually, anything, forgive them. No, that's not at all what we're saying. What we're talking about is turning the experience inwards to say, it's not your fault, it's not about you, it doesn't reflect your worth. But if you're carrying this baggage and you're holding on to it into every relationship, into every experience of your life, how is that's affecting you in not in a great way. So how can we as humans who want to let go of our pain and want to bring in forgiveness in our own lives, how can we do that in the best, most healed way, where we're creating a better space, a better person to be with and to live in? Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
But so yeah,
and it starts from like forgiving yourself, and I wrote 100%. It down here that forgiving yourself, first of all, is allowing you the opportunity to rise above whatever that situation was.
Yes.
So you're really doing a favor for yourself.
Exactly. It's not about the other person.
Yeah, not at all. Yes.
And then another thing you said is, I do think that obviously, like, because we've all been through different childhood traumas, the healing is going to look different. And like Shira was saying, what a beautiful example. She's one person, but they're different childhood traumas. It's almost like it's the opposite. It's one of her saying, I need to be individual and I need to be on my own, and I have to put myself first. But on the other side, it's also saying like, but I still want to give people attention and give people and make them feel seen, because maybe I didn't always feel that way, And I think just talking about my own experience as well, like Shira and I, again, we're very similar. We're always on the same wavelength. Like, we're different people, different bodies, different experiences, but very, very similar in just the way that we, I think and take things, and like the way how we want to unpack it. So for me, one of the first times I really thought about this, or I don't know the first, but I was in one of those like spiritual Kabbalah classes, and I remember just the teacher talking about a little bit about childhood trauma and how, you know, we come into this world with this certain baggage, and part of our process and work, right, to heal is how can we let that, not only can we let the trauma go, what Shira was saying, but also how can we almost use it for our benefit?
Right.
How could we
As
help
like a
it
weapon.
as a weapon? How can we help it catapult us into our next level, into our next healed version of ourselves? Because there's so many different versions of ourselves, and there's so many different, it's not just like, oh, I'm unhealed versus healed. I think healing in it of itself is such a spectrum, and there's so many steps in between that you're not just like, oh, now I'm healed. No, there's always the next thing to heal. That's the whole reason of why we're human and why we're here. For me, and I've definitely spoke about this before, but growing up, for me, it was never like this one traumatic experience. Of course, I mean, we've all had traumatic experiences, but it never was one. I think it's just always a series of different little ones. For me, I talked about how I'm the youngest, right? Shira's the oldest, I'm the youngest. I never felt like close to my family. I felt my parents were always working, and they're both spiritual teachers, so they were almost like on call like doctors, but it never ended. It was 24/7, and I respect them so much for it because they've literally devoted their lives to helping people through their own traumas, through their own experiences for the last 30 years or so. So it's awesome, right? But as a child, when my parents are always working and I didn't feel like I got enough attention, that's not always fun. My brothers went to school, for really late. They went to like religious schools, so they came home late. So essentially, I just felt like I was home alone a lot of the time. And just from an emotional standpoint, my family, we weren't the most, expressive of emotions. So we all retreated in our own ways. We all had our own little way of dealing with things. And for myself, I spent a lot of times with friends. I spent a lot of times with girlfriends, Shira included. And it was awesome, sleeping at their house, having them sleep at my house. It was such an awesome experience, and I'm very grateful for that. But what I always craved as a child was just to be close with my family, was to have this beautiful, emotional, close relationship with my mom, my dad, and all my brothers. And I didn't have that growing up. I felt really alone. It's a big house of a loud house of 6 people, and I just felt like alone. I always felt by myself. And because of I felt alone, we didn't really express ourselves, all of that, I had a really hard time and I still do, I'm working on it, but I always had a really hard time expressing my emotions, just from from a vulnerable standpoint. Like, I could say, hey, I'm mad, but it's different there's one thing to express your emotions, but there's another thing to express your emotions from a vulnerable space. And those are different things. Because I could yell at Shira and tell Shira, hey, I'm mad at you. You hurt me. What you said wasn't nice. Or I can come in and say, Shira, I just want to tell you, I really didn't like the way you spoke to me. It really triggered me in different ways. To come from the heart. Those two things that I just said are such different. Because it's the energy behind the words. It's always the energy. Energy never lies. So for me growing up, I from 12 to 18, whatever it was, I felt really alone, really upset, really sad. And I decided at 17, I remember this really, I remember being 17 years old and almost making this contract with myself, this intentional choice to say, I want to be close with my family. I'm going to go make that happen. And I remember being 17, my oldest brother was already out of the house, but my other 2 brothers were there. And I literally remember that day of almost switching on the light and starting to make an intentional choice to just be close with them. So I would really make an effort, as uncomfortable as it was, because we weren't close, to just start joking around with them, start talking to them more, just start opening up, oh, what's going on? Really just start opening up the lines of communication. And then in the most recent years, specifically with my mom, I've talked about my relationship with my mom, and it's been awesome. It's been a journey. Growing up, we weren't close. We butt heads a lot. For those of you that believe in astrology, we're both Leos, so we both, want to be just the head and just really, really bumping heads. And I think for me it was just super painful because my whole life I always pictured myself in this like beautiful close relation with my mom. I saw it, on TV. I saw it through my friends. They had close relationship with their moms, and I would always come home just like sad that I didn't feel that way. And part of, I think, being in a house where we didn't express ourselves, our emotions, at least vulnerably, I didn't feel seen, right? I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel validated. Because that's just not something that we did. I genuinely believe that every single member of my family is amazing. I love all of my brothers. My mom and dad, they were amazing parents raising us. They still are awesome parents. But again, as childhood trauma is, it's our individual experience of our childhood. So even though I know my parents did the best they could and they, gave me clothes and a roof over my head, which is more than a lot of people can say, which is I'm very grateful for, at the same time, being that it's my experience, I also didn't feel that my emotional needs were met, So in the last few years, it was really me working on that relationship with my mom to really, really break down those walls. And again, I think what Shira and I really want to express is that all of this healing, it's a very intentional choice. We're not just saying, oh, go and do it. You have to, like what Shira said, I loved what you said, like you need to feel it. It needs to be a feeling within yourself. For example, I'll tell you, and I know I've spoken about this, but it like what Shira said about her toxic friendship, my relationship with my mom, like all of the journeys that we've been through, all the healing, it continues to teach me so much about myself and about life and about relationships, and I bring this lesson to all of my friends who I feel can, benefit from it and share from it. But the last few years, my mom and I have really like made the intentional choice, both of us, to work on our relationship. And I've said this many times. I've spoken, I've had the same conversation with my mom 100 times, and each one of them was really hard for me because it was me expressing my pain and with the intention to let go of my pain, forgive her, forgive myself, like just to grow our relationship, right, to make it deeper. And what I feel like made the biggest difference was, again, as I mentioned, this last conversation where we both came in really vulnerable. And right, we say like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. But when people would ask me, why are you having the same conversation over again? Like maybe it's a dead end, like maybe it's just not possible. I know that deep down, my desire to be close with my mom was pushing me through all these difficult conversations, because the desire to be close with her was stronger than the uncomfortability of not being heard. And that's my childhood trauma. When for example, I'll bring it to today, like, when I'm talking to someone and they're on their phone while they're talking to me and I don't feel heard, like I instantly feel my childhood trigger come up of like, oh, I'm not being heard right now. Yeah. Like, and I'll literally, and the way that I've healed that is I said, well, I know that what I have to say is valuable. I'm getting off track, but it's part of the thing. What I know, and so, okay, pause. When I speak to someone and they're like on their phone while talking to me, by the way, one of my pet peeves, it's because it triggers my childhood, right? Like my childhood need for feeling heard, and I didn't feel heard. So what I do is, before, I would just get like really angry at the person and I would just judge them in my head, and I would shut down myself. So they would like finish their text and be like, wait, what were you saying? And I'd be like, no, never mind. Like my wall came up and I wouldn't be able to be vulnerable anymore. But what I started doing, and this is part of, again, the healing, the how to use it for my benefit, instead of judging the person for being on their phone when they might literally need to like send an important text to someone, I pause, I stop talking, I say, no worries, I'll let you finish. They finish their task, because I know in my mind what I have to say is valuable and what I have to say matters, and I'm seeing myself.
You change the script.
I'm changing the script. Yeah. So I think as children, we are so desperate to be seen by other people, especially our parents, because that's the first relationship we have in this world. As adults, part of the healing is flipping the script and also bringing it internally. Is like me starting to see myself. So when someone is on their phone sending an important text, and for me, instead of judging them and saying, oh, how dare you, like, why aren't you giving me your full attention, it triggers me. It triggers the little girl inside of me that just wants to be seen. Instead, I say, I'm going to see myself. I know what I have to say is powerful. I'll wait for them, and then I'll continue to say it, again, from a vulnerable place. Essentially, I think the whole point of this is really breaking down the walls brick by brick and not letting the walls come back up. That is, I think, what healing is in a sentence, especially with childhood stuff, because it's never like, oh, this big moment of healing. You know, it's not like, oh my God, like, yes, there was this one conversation I had with my mom that changed everything, sure, but what about all the other conversations, all the other bricks, you know, that we were building,
and
that we were bringing
being
down.
built.
And
Like,
it's still being built, you know, like, that's my point. It's never, maybe a childhood trauma event could be one traumatic event, but the healing of it, it's never a one-time thing. It's always many, many little moments of choosing the harder path, or choosing the path that's more healed, or choosing the path that is a little bit more vulnerable. That's maybe not as natural. It's natural for me to shut down, to say, okay, whatever, I'm done with you. We're not going to talk ever again. You know, it's like it's easier to throw the person away than to actually put in the effort to build the relationship.
Yeah. I love what you said about intention, because I feel like that's the key point. Honestly, if we could sum it up in one thing, it's really intention. Like, childhood trauma a lot of the times is not something you could control, but the way you heal it and the way you let it affect you, that's something you could control, and that comes with intention. Like, how are you going to approach it?
So one thing to add, actually, because I'm speaking about my childhood trauma. I've talked about, you know, my relation with my family, and I have to tell you, making, like what Shira just said, making that intentional choice. Now my brothers and I were so close. We have sibling nights, and I remember, like, every single one of my sibling nights, I'm sitting there, like, basking in the joy of us laughing and hanging out and whatever, like, genuinely being friends. Everything I've
And
always
your
loved.
mom,
And
they're
my
like the
mom.
Gilmore Girls.
Literally, someone recently, I know, I told you, someone recently said me and my mom are like the Gilmore Girls. And that sentence from this random person that I don't even know healed so much in me. You don't even understand. Like, the little girl inside of me was smiling so big and so hard, like, we made it, you know? And, like, when I'm sitting with my brothers at our sibling nights, I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, like, I'm reverting back to my 12-year-old self and thinking, wow, like, I'm basking in all the fruits of the labor, of the intentional choice.
Beautiful thing.
You know, like, genuinely putting so much intention. Just like when you go to the gym intentionally, right? You're going to the gym and you're working out and you want to look good and feel good, and then you do look good and feel good. It's like, it makes the biggest difference, because you know you put in that work and you're seeing the results.
You had that intention.
And you had the intention, like, your desire was so big that you woke up on the days that you didn't want to wake up and you went to the gym anyways, right? There's so many moments that I have fights with my siblings where I'm like, I could so easily just, like, walk away and not heal this, but I sit there and uncomfortably, and I want to heal this, you know? I want us to talk about our feelings. I want us to understand where we're coming from. So with all of that, something that I've really learned from my childhood trauma, from all of this, from all those deep, sad, hard feelings of sitting with, like, not feeling heard and not feeling seen and not feeling good enough and not feeling lovable and all those things, I've really extracted that into my adult life to say, you know what? I don't want any single person that I interact with or speak with to ever walk away from this conversation feeling not seen and not heard and not validated. So genuinely, I make it a mission in my life that every single person I speak to, I literally remind myself and I pause and I go, wait, how can I make this person feel seen right now? How can I make them feel heard? Someone will talk to me about something small, maybe something that happened with their friend or whatever, and I'm just sitting there like, okay, how can we digest this? How can I empower this person right now? And genuinely, that's the whole point of this podcast that Shira and
I was just gonna say,
right?
yes.
Like, this is the epitome of this podcast, is we just want genuinely in our hearts to make people feel seen and heard and validated, so that when they listen to an episode and they walk away, they're smiling a little bit bigger and they're skipping a little bit more, you know? And
we're healing our childhood trauma,
right,
by doing this.
Yeah, and again, Shira and I have literally known each other since we were like 8 years old.
Yeah.
So this is truly a full circle moment for us, and we're just so happy to have this platform to share it with the world and share it with you guys and just genuinely make people feel less alone, because we have so much power in this world as humans. Like, also at a biological level, like, we need connection, we need friendship, we need relationship. It is only a benefit to us to help each other heal that.
Yes. Like we say in our intro, what is it? A little bit less alone, a little bit less
more seen, a little bit more just human and connected.
But yeah, so that pretty much sums up healing childhood trauma, and like Rachel said, and we've mentioned a couple times, it's not a one stop fits all or like a 1 second thing. This is brick by brick. It takes time, it takes intention, and it's not like, for us even, it's not like these things are not going to come continuously come up. It's about being more aware of it. Once you're more aware of it, it's easier to react better to it, and to not let it affect you negatively.
Yeah, and one thing I also want to share is because we all equate like childhood trauma to our parents, right? It always goes back to them.
Yes,
It's their
this is a
first
huge
relationship. We have to remember, because this is something I had to really learn like in my life. Just because our parents didn't break all generational trauma cycles doesn't mean that they didn't break any. They break the cycles that we might not be privy to. My mom grew up, her parents were in the Holocaust survivors. Like, that was a traumatizing childhood for my mom to go through. Can you imagine, God forbid, can you imagine parents that have seen horrible things that don't know how to handle it? My mom is, you know, breaking those childhood traumas of coldness and not being, like, the emotional vulnerability. She is breaking it, whether or not I saw it or not. Now, as an adult, where I'm, you know, healing my own, I see it more and more. Even with my dad, with my mom, I'm just saying to give our parents a little bit more credit. I'm not saying that they're, you know, didn't do anything to us and, you know, we should sweep it under the rug. No. And again, our healing is for us. It's not about them. But
Exactly.
part of healing, though, is letting go of the judgment we carry about ourselves and others.
Yes.
And I don't think we can ever fully heal if we're still holding on to that resentment and pain for our parents, you know, because I know how hard it was for myself to walk around every day carrying that pain. I can't imagine for other people as well how that feels. I really feel for you. Like, genuinely, you know, I'm here. We're here for you. We feel for you. And I think that I can just tell you from my own experience, when I was able to let go of that pain, like genuinely let go of that baggage and it floated away, oh my gosh, I felt like a whole new person. And we just want you guys to have that feeling as well, because it is unlike anything that you can buy, that you can smell, that you can see. Just it is when you truly put that effort behind the healing, it transforms everything. Like, our realities that we are now with ourselves, with our families. I'm not saying
It's night and day for me.
Exactly. It's absolutely night and day. The way that I can now speak to my family and express my emotions. And the biggest thing I didn't mention before, crying in front of people. I had the hardest time crying in front of anybody, not my friends, my mom, nobody. Now I'm crying in front of my mom. I'm crying in front of my friends. Like, the gates are open, you know?
It's also like, I like what you said before about like being vulnerable and being able to express yourself is two different things. Like, me and Rachel are very good at like talking. I can talk out my feelings, but to actually feel my feelings in front of someone, and like I can tell, like what you said before, I can tell someone, you hurt me, you did this, but like to show them how much it hurt me in a way that's vulnerable and not like attacking.
Yeah.
So why was I saying this? I don't remember, but anyways, yeah, it's a good point.
But yes, so okay. So we're gonna get to the quote and question of the day.
Yes, this is one of my favorite quotes.
As you know by now, this is how we end off all of our episodes. And so I'll go ahead and read the quote. It's by Michelle Rosenthal.
Yeah. Bro, we're Jewish. You should know how to say that.
Rosenthal. Trauma creates change you don't choose. Healing is about creating change that you do choose. And I'll say that again. Trauma creates change you don't choose. Healing is about creating change that you do choose. And it's just really saying we have the power. At the end of the day, it goes back to us.
Yeah. It just sums up like our whole point. We're the ones in control. Okay. Question of the day. So we already answered these questions. So we want to leave this up to you. And guys, you can DM us. You can email us. We want to actually hear from you.
Please reach out.
How can you view your childhood trauma as a benefit to your adult self? What has it taught you about yourself, and how has it given you the space to become who you are today?
That's so good. I think you need to repeat that.
Yeah, it's a loaded question. It's like a 3-part question. First part, how can you view your childhood trauma as a benefit to your adult self? How can your past be a benefit to you now? What has it taught you about yourself? And how has it given you the space to become who you are today? That's a lot to think about. So we'll leave you guys with that. And interact with us. We want to hear from you. And stay tuned for our next episode.
See you next week. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
We hope this conversation helped you feel a little bit more seen, a little less alone, and reminded you to take a step back and zoom out.
We're grateful to have you all along with us on this journey together.
Stay tuned for our next episode.
Bye, friends.